Hello and welcome to that Interview Experience podcast with me, Ash Taylor, the podcast where we try and help 16 to 18-year-olds with a little bit of advice about getting ready for the world of work and most especially that first interview experience. I'm joined, as always, by the delectable Helen Sanders. How are you, Helen?
Is it okay to say I don't know what that means? So I'm good. Thank you. How are you doing?
You were straight away going to look that one up afterwards, aren't we? I'm having to think of new adjectives for every single time episode that we have. So series 2, we're kind of midway through, well, maybe a quarter of the way through now, aren't we? Week 4, I think we're on week 5, in fact. Yeah. We've had some amazing guests. It's been really interesting, hasn't it? And there's a theme. I'm wondering if anybody can spot the theme for this series.
Yeah.
I want to give it away because obviously Wayne's with us as well. And
so we'll see if Wayne picks on the theme. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Wayne Pilgrim, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you guys?
Yeah, delectable, apparently.
Delectable. Helen's going to work that one out later and go, he said, what? He's been looking up now. That's great. So, Wayne, for the benefits of our audience, can you just let them know what you do, what you do for a day job and why you're recruiting,
Yeah, so we've recently opened a pub in town centre of High Wycombe called the Flint Cottage. It's right opposite the train station, so plenty of clientele come in from London on a 25-minute train, but, well, when they get back to work. We're a new business. We were due to open April last year, but things kind of got in the way. Open for 2 weeks in December. But then we're now back open with our garden and hope, fingers crossed, come 17th of May, we'll be open indoors as well. But we created about 10 to 12 jobs in High Wycombe when we opened. So we hired all new staff. Didn't bring, other than a chef, we didn't bring anyone over. So yeah, we were having plenty of people applying and it was interesting.
So I'm presuming some of them will have been, reasonably young, casual as well as full-time.
I think there was a big range of people, and obviously with jobs and stuff kind of being very sparse at the time, a lot of people being made redundant, but we did have a lot of younger people looking for their first attempt at coming into a working environment. And I think that's brilliant. Hospitality does provide quite a lot of job openings for younger people. And it's a great way of building people's confidence and giving them that opportunity to work with older people, like meet older clientele, speak to people. I mean, I know when I turned 18 and worked in pubs, it was the biggest boost to my confidence that I've ever had, because you actually were face to face with people. And especially at this time when people have been sitting at home and being taught from home and not seeing a lot of people, it's quite nice that they can branch out and see more people outside.
Well, I remember certainly when I was a kid and I played a lot of tennis, as some people will know listening to this, and my tennis club used to put on quite posh dinners. So we'd have sit down silver service New Year dinner and Valentine's dinners and all this sort of stuff. And we, us at 14, 15, 16, we'd all get roped in to serving, and then they'd pay us, and I'd be doorman and all sorts of stuff, making checking tickets, and we'd be serving food, serving alcohol at 14, we're allowed now, all that sort of stuff. But it was such a great grounding. You're right, just sort of having to talk to people who are the age I am now, kind of thing. But you look at them and they're all well presented and they're in their finest and their tuxes, and then there's a lot of money being splashed around. We had casino nights, and it really sort of teaches you how to communicate. So I'm a big fan. My child is doing the same at the moment. She works for a catering company locally, and loves it. Absolutely loves it, because she gets to meet people. So I think you're right. It's a superb introduction to learning a lot of skills.
Absolutely.
Be dismissed.
Yeah. I mean, I started at the age of 14 in Pizza Hut in Uxbridge, so not far from where you guys are. One of my favorite jobs I ever did, and I learned so much about how I was managed in that role. And one of the key things I learned about that hospitality experience was taking grumpy people coming in for pizza and the free salad bar, and giving them a good experience without them realizing that was what I was determined to do.
Yes.
People coming in smiling, they're already having a good time. The people coming in who've just had a bad day, and you don't know why they've had a bad day, but they need pizza, that was, I learned so much about how I was able to help them. So yeah, I would say if you're 17 or 18 and you need more experience, get a hospitality role, because you'll learn so much about yourself as well as interacting with other people that you wouldn't normally interact with. So yeah, absolutely.
There's standards as well, like standards that we have to keep in the pubs, not just because of recent like events, but you know, there's the cleanliness, the like you say, the service, the customer journey, things like that's huge amounts of experience you can take anywhere. You know, if you're in an office job, that everyone talks about a customer journey, they talk about that experience that they're having, and it's huge. It does help a lot of people.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the responsibilities that go with it. You know, if you're asked to do a stock take, if you are asked to close down at night, if you're the last put cash up, any of those sorts of things, that in itself is brilliant experience to get, without a doubt. And also my manager, Sophia, I remember so clearly, we were in the centre of Uxbridge. We would get some people who maybe had a little bit too much to drink. And if they did go into the bathrooms and abuse the bathrooms a little bit, she would never ask any of us floor staff at 14 or 15 to go in and clean up until she'd already tried herself. You know, so it's that kind of experience that I got, which
that's my standards as well. I don't ask anyone to do anything I wouldn't do.
You wouldn't do.
The same as a KP in the kitchen. If we've got a young guy in there or a glass collector that you know was doing it, I do it myself first.
Do it as well. Yeah.
Those standards.
Yeah.
Well, you sound like a nice guy to work for, Wayne.
Thanks. But there's also growth in the role as well. You know, if someone really proves themselves, we have incentives that we do here and stuff like that. So there's growth. You know, if someone does turn 18 and they're interested in, I'd like to pour drinks, then there's that next step for them and that progression, which sometimes you can struggle to find if you're sitting in another job. So
that's fair.
True.
Especially that early on in your career as well, I suppose. In that journey. So when you are recruiting, and obviously this is quite fresh for you because you've had, as you say, about a dozen people who have started in over the last year. What kind of skills? I won't lead the question, but what are you looking for in a young person when they're joining?
So I just want someone who's quite vibrant, got a bit of personality about them, is keen to work. You know, I think that's what you have to show from their side rather than mine. You know, I can ask all the interview questions in the world, but until you're actually on the job and you show that passion or just some keenness about it and asking questions, I think interview processes, especially over Zoom at the moment, is kind of very difficult because you're not actually meeting the person. But just, you know, chasing up after you've interviewed or things like that, they go a long way.
Yes.
People who are asking those questions, and when you get to the end of an interview, what questions do you have? Well, you know, even if it's about tips or what do we get paid or stuff like that, it's just showing that passion about what you're interviewing for, and I think that's important for me.
Yeah, because if you've had two people that you've interviewed, both pretty much the same in the interview over Zoom, one follows up, one doesn't, who are you going to decide on? You know, who are you going to go with?
You're making it easier, aren't you? They're making it easy for you.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, skills, you know, we'd love people to have skills, but I understand everyone starts from somewhere. And I think with anyone said that before, is how would you gain experience in a job if you don't get a chance to do the job? And I know friends from around the area who run businesses or managers of businesses and say they'd hire someone who's worked in hospitality over a lot of people because they've got that something about them.
Yes.
And that's what you want from that person when we're interviewing is just a bit of kind of something about them rather than, I do this. Like, you know, we want to give them the experience and the training, but they want it as well.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I look out when I see a McDonald's graduate traineeship or just McDonald's or Pizza Hut or any of those chains where I know they've been taught processes. And if they've been there a long time through university, where maybe they started off at home and then when they went to uni, they went to a pub up there or whatever it is. I love seeing that on CVs, regardless of whether they're an IT person now or a marketing person now. If they've had that grounding in hospitality, I know what they've had to go through, and you know, because it's not an easy job.
No.
Probably enjoyable, but not easy.
Yeah, it's been a shock to the system coming back. Obviously, we're blessed them. They had 2 weeks training,
Right,
and then we got shut down again. But you know, they've all come back, and it's actually surprised me how they've come back with passion. And I think that's what I'd look for going forward if we are hiring people. You know, it's not the greatest wage in the world when you are like on minimum wage, but if it's something and you're happy to do that job to get that money and be called in at last minute notice because the sun's come out, that's another thing.
Yeah. So when do you look at the CVs, or are you more interested in who they are in the interview then?
I am a big CV person.
Are you? Okay.
I like a CV that has some sort of detail about the job in it. There's been some kind of writing about either the role or just enough in the CV. I know not everyone's a wizard on Word and doesn't have to have all this fancy stuff on there, but it's also when you get someone who just lists their GCSEs and like name and contact number, then that's kind of an off-putting situation. Whereas someone who has written, like, they tailor it for the role. So if you were going for McDonald's, like you said, or a bar job, or even an admin office temp worker, you've tailored it for that, and you've got something in there. Yes, talking to someone is very different as well, but I do kind of like a little bit of passion.
So is that because it takes quite a lot of effort to take a CV, think about the role, and then join the dots between your CV and that role so that it's kind of relevant? Because I think a lot of people just take their CV and just sort of almost post it through Letterbox, and just, you know, the same CV goes out to 100 jobs on Indeed, and you hope it sticks. But it takes a lot of effort to take 100 CVs and tailor them for 100 different roles.
No,
I know, talking big numbers, but you know, I guess there's that bit of drive there, isn't it?
But then I guess if you haven't got experience in anything, you know, I love it when they put D&V stuff on, or like babysitting and things like that. It just shows that there's a thought process behind what they're writing, because you're selling yourself to an employer. You're, even at a young age, you're still trying to give that employer something that makes you stand out. And you could get the interview process and you might not fit the role that is there, but at least if you've done something about your CV, even if a slight paragraph, I don't like cover letters because they're quite a long thing to read through, but a little paragraph at the top saying, I'd like to work in hospitality because I feel like I've got the passion and I've got the drive to do well, and I love customer service, even if it isn't true for the time.
At least you've thought about it.
Yeah, you've thought about what you're applying.
You made an effort.
Made it relevant.
Okay, so then you've got people through the door. They've come and they're interviewing with you in your venue. What are you looking for in that interview?
Again, I think I'm looking for someone who responds well and asks the questions that are there. I wouldn't say I'm the best interviewer in the world. I'm kind of very quick and like to get the ball rolling and make them feel comfortable. But I also want them to ask the questions as well, because it isn't just about me and what I'm looking for. I can do the same interview over 100 times over for the same role. But some people do stand out when they go, okay, but like, what would you do if this was the case? You know, and you know, if they've got that, passion, but if they've got that interest in what you're doing, and even if it is just for a monetary purpose of them working Fridays every week to buy a couple of items of clothing or pay their phone bill, you know, it's that first step in a process. And I think sitting down with someone who's engaged and is listening to what you're asking and thinks about their answers before they just go like blurt out questions. You know, it's always nice to change up the questioning for yourself as well as someone coming in. So
we were talking in a previous episode about I think it was Steve a few weeks back, and we were talking about that there's just as much pressure on the interviewer and the recruiter as there is on the interviewee, and it is a two-way nerve fest, I suppose, because you know you need to get it right. You're going to invest in this young person over the next, might only be 2 years, it might only be 6 months for a summer or whatever, but there's still a cost for the business to invest in that person, and you've got to justify it to your shareholders, your boss, whatever it is, and you're kind of putting your reputation, your decision-making skills on the line when you recruit somebody. So actually it's just as important for you to feel that the questions that you're asking and the way that you ask them give you the best chance of making that correct decision for both parties.
Yeah.
I think presentation as well is a huge thing. You know, you can answer all the questions right, but if you've walked in a pair of tatty jeans and things like that, I'm not saying everyone has to dress to the nines when they're coming in for an interview, but you kind of, how you hold yourself, how your demeanor is when you're talking to someone is very important as well. If you've got someone slouching and just, oh yeah, I know how to do this because they've done that before, it doesn't go well with the person who you might have standards that are very different to someone else's. So a place you worked at, if they have had experience, if they bring that into your place, is it going to change your aspect of working? I think you just need to hold yourself well and understand that it's an important process, even if you're sitting at home on your own and you've got the top half kind of, I'm looking smart, and you've got some jogging bottoms on underneath, but it's just that presentation.
At least think about it. Yeah.
I guess it's the same as any conversation. It just happens to be an interview for a job.
Yeah.
Because if I'm 18 and I'm chatting with my next door neighbor about their garden, but I'm kind of just like, yeah, nice daffodils. If you do that approach in an interview as well, it's not going to work. So just treat it as an engaged interview when they come and meet with you for your interview. And just make an effort, really.
Yeah. Like I said, it's not about a full dress code, but there should just be some kind of effort made. And I just think it comes across well. If you hold yourself well and you present yourself well, then there's more chance for that person to go, I like that person. Even if there's a couple of little bits, you might just go, do you know what? That's the person I want.
Yeah.
And it can be just not what you say, but sometimes how you say it and what you don't say quite often. That can be that little trigger. Certain, that's really interesting. So do you have, I suspect your interviews are relatively relaxed, but do you have, I mean, we all have questions that we like to ask because we obviously always have a benchmark, but have you got a favorite interview question that you like?
I do actually. It's how would you deal with a complaint?
Yeah,
I think that's
okay.
That for me, that's a huge thing, because like you said earlier, you don't know what other people have had in the day before they've walked in.
Yeah.
Someone could have had a really terrible day, and a cold chip on their plate could be the last, like the straw that
tips them over the edge.
Yeah.
And it's how people react. I've worked in complaints for a loan company before, so I know.
Wow.
I know that this, like, how harsh it can be, but just a face-to-face. But I'm not talking someone making trouble, because we'd always step in anyway. But I just mean someone who has something to say, and how would you react to that? And I've got some great answers. And they've all kind of gone, well, yeah, we tried to deal with it. And it's just brilliant, like how the thought process of what people would do. It's not react badly. It's react in a positive way to make that customer feel better, and again, leave with a smile. So yeah, I think that's my favorite, because I just think it puts them on the spot, rather than, well, what's your 5 best qualities and what's your 5 worst. And I can sit there at my age, like 37 years old, and go, I don't know my 5 worst, because I think I'm great. But
yeah. And actually, the time that your strengths and weaknesses come out are when you're under a challenge, which is when someone complains. So when those chips come out and they're cold and they've had a crappy day, let's face it, they don't, that is, like you say, Ash, that's the thing that's going to tip them over the edge. So what's the best answer you've ever heard to that question?
I think, well, I mean, one of my girls was that she would she'd go back to the customer and just talk to them through it, and ask them if they're okay, if there's anything else we can do. We don't, everything is kind of, you don't want to give stuff away, but she just wanted to kind of find out if that person was okay, and if that was the only issue, and if there's anything management could do for her to kind of make any like amends to the issue. And I just thought it was really nice. It made it personal for the customer. We're obviously not here to be sorry, phone's going on. We're obviously not here to be kind of talk everyone through all their problems, but we do want to make sure everyone's had a great time. And it could be one person off of a table of 6 people, but it's always making sure, and those other people around them, that they know that we care and we want to give that service back. So
yeah, and actually, if you look at advisor, it's how you deal with the complaints, isn't it? If it's how you turn that customer around, because if you turn that customer around and they go away and say, do you know what? I was having a terrible day. I went for dinner. Everyone else's was fine. Mine was terrible, but they dealt with it brilliantly. I would absolutely go back there. That's the sign of great customer service. And for you,
that is better than
something. Yes.
That is better than great food, great atmosphere, great service.
Yeah.
Because that's just such a stock answer, isn't it?
Yes.
To say, but actually when you're faced with a challenge, I mean, I talk about this story quite a lot, but my wife and a very close friend of hers a couple of years ago went to Chez Gerard in town, and they hadn't seen each other for months. They booked a table, turned up, and there was a sign outside the door saying, restaurant closed for a private party. And Russell was, this is not good. I'm not happy. Goes downstairs, is about to sort of lay into one. They both had really, really difficult days. They were really looking forward to seeing each other under a lot of pressure. And before he could say anything, the maitre d' came out and said, "Mr. Payne," and he was like, "Yes. Really sorry, we messed up. Take a seat." Brought out 2 glasses of champagne and proceeded to tell them that they'd had a new member of staff who'd answered the phone for the booking. They hadn't trained them effectively. He didn't know to check the booking system when he took the booking, the bulk booking system, group booking system. But it was their failure. To not worry, there was a taxi on its way to take them to their sister restaurant in Chancery Lane.
Wow.
Taxi turned up. They hadn't finished their champagne. Don't worry, take it with you. They got to the other restaurant. They had a private booth, a bottle of champagne waiting for them, and the meal was on them. And they've really thought about, I know this got nothing to do with interviewing, but they've really thought about how to deal with those situations before they come up, rather than making it up on the fly. Somebody sat down and gone, when things go wrong, when we mess up, this is what we're going to do. So I think for the people in that industry and going through that process, that's going to take them and give them skills for the rest of their lives, wherever they end up working. And I think that's, coming back to what we were talking about with you guys, and then the interview scenario of how would you deal with a complaint? It's too easy to kind of focus on how am I going to deal with it, rather than, for me, maybe the best answer would be, well, I would deal with it as best as I could, but I'd then maybe challenging management or you to say, well, when that happens again, what should I be doing? How do you want me to deal with it?
Ash, you've just given, if I'm an 18-year-old listening to this and I'm going to go and interview with Wayne and he asks me, how would you deal with this complaint? You've just given me my answer, because I would say, well, do you know, I heard this about this local restaurant, and you just tell that, and that's what I would like to do, Wayne. How do you feel about that? Wayne would be like, now that's going to be expensive.
But is it? But the thing is it expensive?
No,
because I am telling that story over and over again.
I recently had a complaint, and bless her, one of my girls tried to deal with it at the time, but it was just a case of, we were so busy, the food wasn't coming out on time, and someone's booking came in for an undercover seat, but they hadn't finished. So, we've got seats for you, we can make a table or whatever, but we'll get you undercover as soon as possible. And bless her, one of my girls tried so hard to make them happy, and they left a complaint on my Instagram profile. And I phoned them up the next day and I said, there aren't excuses. I can list off why you had this experience, but there are no excuses.
Yes.
And I was telling this to the member of staff at the time, because she was here, and she was like, that's amazing. The person came in the next day, they had a meal, they left a huge review, like saying, thank you so much. And she said, that's amazing, like, you've taken responsibility. And I said, yeah, we were busy. We weren't able to do what we wanted to do for them, but that doesn't make an excuse for someone having bad customer service. And
people just want to be seen, heard, and understood, don't they?
Yeah,
that's it. Fundamentally.
I mean, you don't want everyone complaining and getting free stuff, but if you stand up and make those choices when you have made a situation worse for someone's experience, then, and that's what I want that's why I asked that question, is what position would you feel you'd be in if someone made that complaint?
Yeah.
again, you know, we can all understand that someone's had a few too many beers and we should be on that anyway. But
Yeah.
you know, it's a different situation then. But it is just nice to find out how people would react to something so spontaneous like a complaint, rather than someone saying, "Oh, my drinks are a bit late" or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wayne, brilliant, really fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for giving up your time.
That's okay.
To share that experience with us and the people listening. And there was some really valuable bits in there. If people are local, I mean, I appreciate it's probably only going to be local, and they're maybe looking to get into hospitality, and clearly you sound like somebody brilliant to work for. How do they get hold of you?
So yeah, if you can just email info@theflintcottage.co.uk, and they'll be able to send in CVs. We'll always keep something on file.
Nice.
And what I'd always say is, you know, in terms of younger people, is never be afraid to put your CV to anywhere, because whilst there are a lot going through, there's no fear in, like, people are looking for workers and are looking for people that are keen to do something, and don't be afraid. Like, even if you haven't got all the skills for a hospitality job or any job in the world, like, just try, because someone will be noticed. And if you use some of the tips we've done today, and obviously on your podcast, other tips that people may have said before, it's definitely work in your favor.
Yeah, brilliant.
Got to be in it to win it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that one. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.